Imagine this. A peaceful Sunday morning, August 5th, 2012. A religious community in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, is gathering, preparing for their communal meal, langar. And then, just like that, in minutes, this peace is utterly shattered by brutal, targeted hatred. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into the 2012 mass shooting at the Sikh Temple, the Gurdwara, in Oak Creek. Our goal here is to unpack the sources, give you the solid facts, understand the white supremacist ideology behind it, and explore the lasting impact it's had, both socially and politically. So the basic facts are grim. The attack kicked off around 10:25 a.m. Central Time. The target was unmistakable. Worshippers there for their service. When the violence ended, 8 people were dead. That includes the shooter, and 3 others injured. And right from the start, this wasn't seen as just some random violence.
Yeah.
Oak Creek police, they immediately classified it as a domestic terrorism incident. And later the U.S. Attorney General put it very plainly, an act of terrorism, an act of hatred, a hate crime. The investigation confirmed what many feared from the outset. The driving motives was white supremacy. Okay, let's set the scene a bit more.
Yeah.
You mentioned it was a Sunday, people preparing for langar. I understand children's classes were also scheduled for later that morning.
That's right, around 11:30 a.m. So it was meant to be a normal, busy morning at the Gurdwara, a time for community.
And the weapon. We know the attacker, Wade Michael Page, used a specific handgun.
Yes, a 9mm Springfield XTM semi-automatic pistol.
Now here's something that really stands out, almost unbelievably so. He bought that gun and 3 19-round magazines, legally.
Legally, yeah. Just days before the attack, July 28th, 2012. Paid cash for it.
And the person who sold it to him.
Well, the gun shop owner later told investigators Page's demeanor, his appearance, it raised no eyebrows whatsoever.
Oh, that's chilling, knowing what we know now about his deep extremist ties.
It really highlights a potential gap, doesn't it? Someone so steeped in hate could just walk in and arm himself like that.
So the shooting starts. 911 calls flood in around 10:25 a.m. The police response was incredibly fast.
Very fast. And we absolutely have to talk about Lieutenant Brian Murphy. He was the first officer there.
And he confronted Page almost instantly.
Almost instantly. There's actually an audio recording of it. It's quite harrowing. You hear Murphy say, "I have someone walking out the driveway towards me. Man with a gun, white T-shirt."
And then just gunfire.
Exactly. And Murphy was hit 15 times. 15. Including shots to the face and the back of his head.
It's unbelievable he survived.
Truly unbelievable determination. His actions were crucial, though.
Right, because while 4 people were tragically killed inside the temple, his engagement likely prevented Page from getting further inside or causing more harm.
It certainly contained the situation outside. 3 people died outside, including Page himself.
And how did Page die? There were some initial conflicting reports, I believe.
Yes, the FBI clarified that later. After another officer shot Page in the stomach, Page died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head.
So police action stopped him, but ultimately he took his own life.
Correct. That's the official finding. But let's make sure we focus on the real victims here. Everyone killed that day, except for Page, was Sikh. Their ages ranged from 39 all the way up to 84. It really shows this was an impact on the whole community, young and old.
And these weren't anonymous victims. We're talking about key figures, right? Like Satwant Singh Kaleka.
Yes, Satwant Singh Kaleka, 65. He was the founder of that Gurdwara, a pillar of the community.
And Prakash Singh.
Prakash Singh, 39. He was a Granthi, a ceremonial reader. And heartbreakingly, he'd only recently gotten his green card, just starting a new chapter.
And you mentioned earlier, the male victims all wore turbans, a visible symbol of their faith.
Exactly. Which tragically likely made them targets for someone motivated by that kind of hate.
But the tragedy didn't even end there, did it? The death toll actually increased years later.
That's a devastating point we need to include. Baba Punjab Singh, another Sikh Granthi, shot that day. He suffered a terrible head wound. He survived the initial attack, but he was left partially paralyzed, couldn't breathe on his own, couldn't speak, for nearly 8 years.
8 years. That's an almost unimaginable ordeal for him and his family.
It truly is. He lived in that state until March 2020, when he passed away at 72. His death was officially ruled a homicide, directly linked back to the shooting.
It just underscores the long, long shadow this kind of violence casts.
Absolutely. Decades later, the impact is still felt.
But amidst all this pain, there was also incredible strength and resilience, wasn't there? Thinking back to Lieutenant Murphy.
Yes, absolutely. His bravery was widely recognized, and the Sikh community showed immense gratitude. There was a $10,000 pledge from Sikhs for Justice and even a $100,000 donation from a couple in Yuba City, California. They really rallied around him.
That's a powerful testament to both his courage and the community's spirit.
Hmm.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit. To understand why this happened, we need to understand the perpetrator, Wade Michael Page. What do we know about him?
Well, he was 40 years old at the time, an American white supremacist living in Cudahy, Wisconsin. And significantly, he was also an Army veteran.
An Army veteran. How long did he serve?
From April 1992 to October 1998, he reached the rank a specialist.
But his exit wasn't smooth, I take it.
No, not at all. He received a general discharge. The records cite patterns of misconduct, things like being drunk on duty, going AWOL.
So, a troubled military career. And then what? What happened after he left the Army?
This is where his path takes a really dark turn. Around the year 2000, he got heavily involved in the white power music scene.
And this wasn't just listening to music, right? This scene is known as a hub for extremism.
Exactly. It's a major recruitment and radicalization tool for neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups. Page wasn't just a fan, he was an active participant. He founded his own band, End Apathy, in 2005, played in other bands too, like Definite Hate and Blue-Eyed Devils.
And these bands were known entities.
Oh, absolutely. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, explicitly labeled them racist white power bands. Page himself was covered in tattoos linked to these ideologies and groups, particularly the Hammerskins, a notorious neo-Nazi organization. His commitment was literally written on his skin.
What about his personal life around that time? Did it reflect this ideology?
It seems so. Reports suggest he was quite isolated. A former friend described him as a loner who talked about an impending racial holy war. Neighbors apparently noted he lived alone, kept to himself, avoided eye contact. It paints a picture of someone increasingly withdrawn and consumed by hate.
So the ideology is clear. White supremacy, neo-Nazism. But did investigators ever find a specific, immediate trigger for that particular day, August 5th?
That's a complex point. Oak Creek Police Chief John Edwards did state that because Page died, they might never know his exact thoughts or specific motive for that morning.
Right. No note left behind, nothing like that.
Correct. However, the overwhelming evidence pointed to his deep-seated white supremacist beliefs as the driving force. The FBI investigated it thoroughly as a hate crime rooted in that ideology.
So are you suggesting that when someone is so deeply enmeshed in an ideology like that, the ideology itself is the primary motive, even without a specific last straw event?
Precisely. The ideology dictated the target, a minority religious group. It dictated the hatred. Whether there was a specific personal grievance that morning becomes almost secondary. The framework for violence was already firmly in place.
That makes sense. The why was his entire worldview, not necessarily one single event.
Exactly. The lack of a specific note doesn't negate the clear ideological motivation that fueled the attack.
Okay, let's talk about the aftermath. How did the country and the world react?
The reaction was significant, especially at the highest levels. President Obama offered condolences very quickly. He specifically called the Sikh community a part of our broader American family.
And he ordered flags to house staff, right?
Yes, a national symbol of mourning. The impact was felt internationally, too. India's Prime Minister at the time, Manmohan Singh, who is himself Sikh, noted that the fact it was a Sikh temple made the attack particularly painful globally.
And there was an outpouring of support.
Absolutely. Candlelight vigils sprang up all over the U.S., in Canada, even in India. Communities came together.
And the Sikh community itself, how did they respond in the immediate aftermath?
They showed incredible organization and resilience. U.S.-based Sikh groups quickly set up interfaith vigils, emergency response teams, really focused on healing and mutual support.
There were some reports of protests in India.
There were. Some vigils turned into protests against the U.S., which is perhaps understandable given the shock. However, it's important to note that Sikh groups based in the U.S. strongly condemned any actions like flag burning. Their focus remained on unity and support within the U.S.
Did this tragedy lead to any concrete policy changes or long-term initiatives?
It did have an impact, yes. Just a month later, in September 2012, Congress actually held a hearing specifically on hate crimes and how they're monitored. And on a community level, the Sikh Coalition started promoting the National Day of Seva, a day of service back in 2013, as a way to honor the victims and channel grief into positive action.
That's a powerful way to remember. And didn't one of the victims' sons become involved in politics directly because of this?
Yes. Amar Kalika, his father, Satwant Singh Kalika, the Gurdwara founder, was killed. Amar became a vocal advocate for gun control and stronger hate crime laws. He even ran for Congress.
That's quite a legacy. Did he have a specific take on the shooting's significance?
He did, and it's quite prescient looking back. He described the Oak Creek shooting not just as a tragedy, but as, and I quote, a warning of the increasingly public and violent role that white supremacy would play in the next decade.
Wow. A warning. That certainly resonates now.
It really does. He saw it as a precursor, not an isolated event.
There was also some critique about how this shooting was covered in the media, wasn't there?
Yes, that's an interesting point raised by political scientist Nanihal Singh. He observed that the Oak Creek shootings seemed to get less sustained media attention compared to other mass shootings. He suggested quite pointedly that the racial and religious identities involved a white supremacist attacker and minority religious victims might have played a role in how much coverage it received nationally. Something to consider.
Definitely something to think about. So let's try to distill this down. What are the key takeaways from this deep dive? We've seen a horrific act of domestic terrorism, clearly fueled by a documented white supremacist ideology. We saw the incredible resilience of the Sikh community, and we saw some shocking details about the perpetrator, an Army veteran deeply involved in neo-Nazi culture, who legally bought his weapon just days before.
And that brings us back to perhaps the most troubling thread running through this whole event. Remember the gun shop owner saying Page raised no eyebrows whatsoever? This man, whose body was a canvas of hate symbols, whose ties to extremist groups like the Hammerskins were known, at least to organizations like the SPLC, he passed a background check. He legally obtained the means for mass murder. So the final thought for you, the listener, is really this. How do we bridge that gap? We have documented evidence of involvement in hate groups, groups openly advocating violence, yet the legal mechanisms often fail to prevent individuals like Page from acquiring weapons. What specific policies or maybe social awareness need to change to connect those dots before tragedy strikes? That's the challenge that Oak Creek laid bare, and it's something we're still grappling with today. It's definitely something for you to mull over.
A crucial question indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Oak Creek tragedy.
Subscribe for more.